Renegade is what happens when two ordinary friends dare to practice the lost art of conversation to better understand what it means to be a runner, a human. Should we follow convention and play by the rules? Or would it be better to trust our guts? Each episode, you'll learn from the experts, the underdogs, the elites and non-elites, those doing big things, all in that curious quest of being just a little bit better tomorrow. In a world of runners, be a renegade.
They had a really long article that Sanjay Gupta did about dementia, and about talking to all of these experts. And he said in that article, the most surprising thing I learned about dementia was that there was this connection to the feet, and you should be walking barefoot and you should spread your toes out. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's fascinating. Here, like this long article about dementia prevention, and they're talking about proprioception and balance and your toes being spread, because that sends like a neurologic message to your brain. And this was from, his name is Abrahams is his last name. And he's like the world's expert on dementia. So I'll just leave it at that. So if the world's expert on dementia is saying that it's actually important to have your toes apart and your feet, and you're talking about being barefoot, so that was pretty fascinating. So I have a couple things here. So when I'm at work, Mark Sisson is an interesting guy. So he developed a lot of the primal stuff, and this shoe is actually coming out. It's called Paluva, and it's got the 5 toes. So your toes are separated, but what's unique about this, and I'm not here selling a specific brand of shoe, but I think he's onto something, because he said this, like, if your foot just slides right into these toe pockets, you want this shoe. But if your toes don't slide into it, you probably need this shoe. Meaning it's like, it's, oh, wow, I can't get my toes into these pockets. Is it a problem with the shoe or a problem with your foot? That means you need some help, so wear the shoe. But what's different about this shoe, so I've got a pair of 5. I work at a veterans hospital now, so I can actually go to work in 5 fingers, and they're like military colors. They're like, olive and black. So they don't stand out. Like no one really notices them until they look down and they're like, oh, you got those toe shoes. We used to wear those in the Navy 15 years ago doing PT. But so just having a flat shoe, toes apart, and the shoe that Mark Sisson developed, Paluva, has a little bit more cushion than a 5 finger. So if you're on, like I'm on concrete all day, and it's kind of weird, this shoe just feels pretty magical. At the end of the day, I can be on my feet all day and just having just a little bit of cushion. And if for those who have worn 5-toed shoes, it's a little stiffer. So it's a little. Have either of you ever struggled like getting your toes into like a 5-finger shoe?
I've never tried myself, so
yeah. If it's your first time, you're like, shit, I'm running late for work, and here you're like trying to get your damn like toes into the pockets. Have you?
It's always that baby toe.
Yeah. So Todd's tried. You're like, what? You're like rushing, coffees, right? Like, no, you need to get out. So like, but just an idea and a couple other
just
things.
A quick question on those. So
yeah,
do
go ahead.
you wear like, are you wearing socks in those too, like toe socks, or are you barefoot?
Yeah. I mean, I probably could go barefoot, but then they get smelly and I have to put them in the washing machine too much. Okay. But I have like some Injinji socks.
Okay. Nice.
And I'm just inviting your people just to try it, right? Because no one's going to find like hard science for all of this stuff. But if your brain says, "Oh wow, this is good," I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Do they come in semi-gloss black so I can wear them at work, like with a dress pants?
They do. Yeah, go to the website. He actually has a black leather one. Maybe you could put a link, Paluva.
I'm all over it. That's great.
So just check it out, and that's like the basic concept. But another brand that actually you could wear with your slacks, Mark, this is just a straight Vivo Barefoot. Okay. It's a black kind of semi-leather shoe, and unless you're wearing like a tuxedo, you can wear this with anything. And we use a lot of these insoles called Barefoot Science that help the muscles train. But it has a little bit of cushion. But really anything that when you're standing and walking, that just allows your foot to do some work, allows your foot muscles to activate. And, if any of your folks listening are older, and Courtney Conley is a good friend, she's in Boulder, and she's done some brilliant videos, and she did a podcast with Peter Attia, who's got a pretty big following, but she had some really good videos about the toe strengthening, because I see older patients, and the biggest risk for an older patient is they fall. Right? They fall, and they tend to fall forward. And no one pays attention to the feet and the toes, right? Even when they go do PT, you go to the gym, and like, do you all like occasionally like go to a gym and there's a trainer, and it might be like chest day or leg day or core day, but no one talks about like foot day.
Oh,
Like, well, shit, I gotta like work my feet today. But the standard shoes, and for those listening, we'll describe toe spring. But toe spring is when your toes are kind of ramped up into the air. A lot of shoes kind of curve the last, which is kind of the foundation of the shoe. That's called a last. But that last is actually curves up, so it has kind of a forward rocker effect. Now, that might be fine if you're running or even walking fast, but if you're standing, and if you don't have, say you have type 2 diabetes and you've got some neuropathy, or just from aging, you've got some neuropathy, so you don't really sense the ground too much, and you have this ramped up front of the shoe, and unless you're young and have quick reactions, once you start falling forward, it's game over. Your next impact point is on the ground. So your toes are actually like super important for your feeling on the ground to protect you from falling. And I'm 57. I'm not too worried about that now, but I'm thinking, well, maybe when I'm 87, I'm going to keep my toes like pretty strong. And this has nothing to do with running, because like if you fall and break your hip, like your running days are probably
Right.
over, and you're probably going to end up in a nursing home
Yep.
or care home. So you don't
Yep.
want that. So if you're standing, walking, whatever your job is, some people stand, some people have to walk, mix it up, but have something where your toes are flat, your toes are spread wide, so you can balance yourself. And then how much cushion you want is really based on a little bit of preference, but don't over cushion your standing and walking shoe, because that's where you do want to feel the ground.